Okay. Hey y'all, good evening. I'm Allison. We've got Randy on here too. We're gonna just share a little bit this evening with you guys. We've been changing things up, so thank y'all for hopping on. I know it's a little bit later than our normal call. But I did want to just kind of give you like an overview as to what we're gonna do and kind of what we've been talking about coming up because I feel like we've kind of been missing a lot of connection with our team. Randy and I were talking about that earlier, where it's just been hard to kind of get everybody together. Her season of life with David gone and, girls busy and activities and stuff, partly why we're doing a later call because it's just been really hard to make the timing work out. So, what we're looking at is doing this call like a masterclass monthly. This is something that I'm getting in a group that I'm in with Melissa Eichenhorst and Rebecca Folks. And so they're like doing this class for us, and then we're passing it on to our team. So like they've given us all the tools and all the slides and everything. So it's really nice to have, and it's great information. It's coming from some incredible diamonds, y'all. So they do that every month. So we'd like to be passing this on monthly. As far as other trainings, we can hop on to like what Brandy and Julia and everybody are doing as far as like weekly trainings for that. And then we would like to do trainings that are more like what y'all need. Like we get in there and we say, hey, we're going to get together on this day. What is it that you're needing help with? Are you needing help with following up with some people? Are you needing help with how to reach out to this person? Are you feeling stuck in some way? Whatever it is. And that way it's kind of more of like a coaching and connecting call. So we're going to be doing that where we can just kind of visit with each other and sort of connect and answer questions and just kind of let everybody be together and get to know each other because, it's networking. It's not just out in our networks. Like we are a network too. So very important to connect. So that's coming forward just to kind of tell y'all what's going to be coming down the chute here, hopefully within the next week or two. And I am going to share my screen. Let's see if I can get this right. Where is, oh, the presenter's behind my little thing. There we go. Presenter view. Okay. So can y'all see the window of just the big power of persistence?
It says audience window in front of it right now.
Does it really? That's
Yeah,
weird.
and it says enter full screen mode.
Well,
Now we see it.
okay. Did it go back out of full screen mode for you now?
It just went out, yes.
Well, how is presenter mode helpful if you don't let me actually use it? It says that the presenter view,
Hmm.
this window is for you. Place it on the
Maybe
screen.
exit out, audience window, exit out and see if that works. There's an X at the top corner. Do you see it? Top right. There you go. There you go.
Okay. Where did my other screen seems to be gone. Oh, wait, there it is. I found it. Okay. So y'all can still see the big screen, right?
Kind of.
Kind of. Oh, did it disappear?
It's scrolled down like halfway down the page. There we go.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. But you can't see my screen or my like little notes one now, right? Did I get
No.
it? Sorry, I've
Yeah.
never used this part of the presenter thing because it's never worked for me. Okay, so we're good. All right, so power of persistence. So this is a little bit on changing your perspective, and that's how we're going to change our life, right? That's how we get the things that we're looking for. So the first thing that she kind of talks about a little bit is the team's soundtrack. So what kinds of things, I mean, this is like just some general ideas, but what kinds of things do you guys hear us talking about? Like I know we do a lot of coaching individually, or we're in chats with you guys. Like you probably hear us saying things like have a growth mindset or earn while you learn, right? Do y'all hear that? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but if there's something you can think of that you hear us say a lot or you're questioning one of those, feel free to ask me.
Feel free to open up the chat too. If you don't have the chat open, you guys can kind of type in there if you feel more comfortable doing that.
Yeah. Randy, I might have to have you watch the chat for right now because I don't know that I can pull up another another window
Yeah,
successfully.
yeah, I'll pay attention.
So, yeah, there's just some of the things that you're hearing a lot. Fortunes in the follow-up, that leaders adding value. The who is your 76? I like that one. And Randy and I were talking about that earlier because when you're talking to new people and you're bringing new people on, you don't necessarily know who's going to do what, right? You have no idea. And if you are like, gosh, I've recruited all of these people and they've talked about it and nobody's sharing and nothing's happening. What if you've recruited 75 and you never ask number 76 and that's your diamond? That's the person that's going all in with you and they're super excited, but you stopped asking because you got frustrated, right? So that's a little bit of how we're kind of looking to change the mindset of that. But those things that we talk about all the time, like we're repeating that so that it does kind of stick in your brain and hopefully kind of adjust the way that you think about things. So just take a minute and just think to yourself, and you don't have to throw it out there if you don't want to, but just think to yourself, what is one thing that's holding you back from reaching your goals? It's one of those things that kind of makes you go, oh, and sometimes you might know, and sometimes you might not know, and sometimes you kind of wish you didn't know, right? Because you're like, oh, it's me. No, that's been me. So we're going to kind of dive into this concept. It's got the potential to completely change your perspective. And if you can change that perspective, I really, really, truly believe that you can change your life because this is something that I really worked through within the last couple of years and just totally changing that perspective and looking at things a different way so that it kind of released me from a lot of the things that were holding me back. And it was all me and in my head. So we're going to talk a little bit about how our brains work, right? We are typically wired to regret two things: regretting something we did and it turned out badly, or regretting something we didn't do, like those what ifs, right? So you might think that like the pain of failure would cause the most regret, but actually it's the missed opportunities that haunt people the most. That's like when they talk to people on their deathbed, they're not talking about, well, this happened and that went poorly, and I did this and that didn't work out well. They're usually talking about, what if I had just done that? What if I had tried this? What if this was different? So they're really thinking more about those missed opportunities. So when we don't take action on things, our brain doesn't have a clear outcome, right? Like our brain needs to have an outcome. It has to have an answer to everything. So when it doesn't have that clear outcome, it just cycles through all these endless possibilities. And what if this, and what if that, and what if this? And I don't know if y'all have struggled with the what ifs, but oh my gosh, that used to be in my brain all the time, just on a repeat all the time. Always, well, what if this had happened? What if they said this? What if this happened? And I was always stuck wondering what could have been, what could have happened. And I didn't realize that there was a different way to teach your brain to do it. So if you find yourself stuck in the what ifs, it doesn't have to be that way. So the key to like changing that is failing forward, is increasing your failing tolerance. There's a book by John Maxwell called Failing Forward. And he asks, if your perception of and response to failure were changed, what would you attempt to achieve? So like if you just completely thought about failure from a different perspective and it didn't scare you and you weren't worried about it wouldn't hold you back, right? So what would you do differently? What would you attempt to achieve if you didn't have any issue with failure at all? You were excited about it. So that's what we're going to focus on a little bit more today, is the failure tolerance. And I know some of us have a really low tolerance for failure. I know I did for a long time, tend to give up kind of easily, but that failure intolerance can cost you your dreams. Because when you tell yourself that something isn't possible, you avoid taking those risks and you kind of get stagnant and you get stuck. And then nothing happens, right? So failure tolerance is like a muscle that you've got to build. You can't quit on your dreams so soon because you've got to keep going after the failures, going after the failures. And the more you practice doing things, figure out all the ways to not do it, right? It's just like building a muscle. It takes some time, it takes repetition, and it takes practice. Um, and John Maxwell says one of the greatest problems that people have with failure is that they're too quick to judge isolated situations as failures. Instead, they need to keep the bigger picture in mind. So that's a crucial thing for our business is, we tend to look at that one situation, that one thing, like something happened the other day where someone had a poor customer service experience and just decided, you know what, don't want to do it. Don't trust anything. I'm out. And it's really easy to look at that one scenario and go, man, I don't know if this is right. I don't know if I should be doing this, but it's easy to have that frustration and that stagnancy set in. But we need to look at it as something that's building our failure tolerance, right? And a lot of us want these results. We want to be making more money. We want to lose the weight, rank up, be a better parent, a better leader, whatever it is. We all want these results, right? But a lot of times I feel like we forget that we can't get that result without going through that whole process because we all just want it to be easy, right? But nothing worth having comes easily because you don't want to fail. You don't want to be held back. You don't want to be stuck in stuff, but you also just want to be there without doing all that work that gets you there. Um, so what does that look like in our business? Well, I've been with Plexus for 8 years. I should be a diamond by now. Or I've been with Plexus for 3 years. I should be gold by now. Well, have you done all the things? Have you failed enough to get there? Have you worked on that mindset? Have you changed the way that you think about things? Because it's not just looking at like a time crunch, like it's been X amount of time, just with the healing part of it. Like I've been taking Plexus for 3 months. Why am I not totally better? Well, because it's a process and you have to do all the changes, right? So it applies to everything. God, I have like three mouse things going here as I go. Um, okay, Randy, real quick, it doesn't tell me which slide I'm on. So if I don't remember where you were taking over on which one, and I can't, they're not numbered.
Victim or business owner.
Okay. All right. Just double checking. I didn't want to run over far. And I was like, oh, they're not numbered anymore. That's a problem. See, I'm just failing ahead. It's fine. So we want to embrace failure as learning. We were taught to avoid failure, right? When we're growing up, like, don't do this, be careful that don't go over here because that could happen. Don't, study that way. It's not going to work for you, whatever. It's been just conditioned into us throughout our lives. Like it's the worst thing that could happen is if we fail. But what if we teach ourselves differently? If failure wasn't the end, but it was the beginning, it was more that moment where we're like, oh, okay, well, I don't know that. So here's my opportunity to learn it, right? So failure is that moment where we learn what we don't know. So imagine for a minute if we were raised to embrace failure, to accumulate it, like stack them all up and then use them as a stepping stone to success. So how much more do you feel like you could achieve if you took your failures and just held them all together and was like, okay, now I've learned all these things that I didn't know before, and now I know how to do it. And you use that as a stepping stone, and then you can move forward. The instructions, I think, trips a lot of us up. I know I've been guilty of this too. Many of us wait for somebody to tell us how to succeed. Well, if you would just tell me exactly what to do, just I need to know this, I need to know that, like tell me all the things. But the answers are already out there because in Melissa's words, everything is figure outable. That was like one of her big, Melissa Eichenhorst, it's one of her big phrases that she likes to say. Everything is figure outable. So you've got to figure it out for yourself though, because it's your unique circumstances. And the best way to figure things out is by doing something, take action, because you want to stop being that victim of your circumstance of, well, I'm tired because of this, or I have a new baby, or I have a teenager that's up all night, or I have this, or everybody's got something. Everybody's got a scenario. Everybody's got some sort of circumstance that you can either choose to be a victim of that circumstance and say, this is why things aren't happening, or you can decide not to be the victim and you can take that responsibility and be like, you know what? I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to do it differently. So if you know you need to share like your products and your business with others, or you know you need to get duplication going on your team or more recruiting or whatever, then you have to be the one that takes that action. And one of my favorite quotes that she said was, failure is growth fertilizer. So if something's not growing, pour a little fear and failure on it and see what happens. And I just thought that was such a cool analogy. Um, so again, everything's figure outable. Don't be the victim, take radical responsibility, but you've got to figure out how to get it done with your own life, like with your life and your excuses and your roadblocks and your mind trash, because it's going to look a little bit different than everybody else's, right? So nobody's going to have the exact instructions because they don't know exactly what your head is saying in your circumstance in your life and what your excuses are. So there is a good amount of figuring out on your own, even though we have so many tools and we have such great things to plug into, it's still something that you have to take in with your circumstances and your thoughts and figure it out. And we can help you kind of guide you through it, but it's still a lot of stuff that you've got to do on your own to go through those steps. And so I will let Randy take over with some of the victim or business owner stuff here.
Yeah. So as I was looking at this earlier, I was actually talking to Allison. It reminded me of a book that I'm listening on Audible right now, and it is so good. I think it's very convicting. And it helps me think about my teammates, but mostly myself and where I was at one point, where I am now, where I've been. But he talks about these different mindsets, and he's talking about being a victim. And I can't remember the other two names that he had for the others, but I just remember as I was listening to it, I was like, "Ooh, this is convicting. Like, I need to be listening to this over and over again." So it's called The Game of Conquering. And I highly recommend it for every single one of you guys to listen to or read. I prefer listening to, and then, I mean, actually, that's one of those books I probably would get the physical book as well, but listening to it like really, really speaks to me. Um, and this is something I'm going to bring this up to talk to you guys a little bit about my daughter too, who's in gymnastics. So stop saying I can't. That's one thing I say to my children all the time. Kyla's in gymnastics, right? That's one of those sports that's extremely a hard mindset sport, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's only 11 years old, and this girl is a level 6 gymnast. Okay. She's just now starting her season of level 6, and she's sitting here telling me, I'm going to be a level 6 again next year because I can't, and I'm not going to be able to do anything for level 7. I'm like, wait a minute. You haven't even started your season yet. Do not say that word, because if you say I can't, you're speaking that into existence. You can't say I can't. Like, I do not want to hear that. I can't do it yet, but I will get there, right? Like, that is okay if you say yet, use that key word, but using the word I can't. So I actually talk about this a lot with both my children, but specifically with Kyla because she's a gymnast, and man, oh my gosh, I can't imagine the type of, I mean, because it's scary what she does. And that's like, I mean, we think this is scary what we do. I mean, she's physically doing scary things. Like, she falls, makes one wrong move, guys, scares me. I'm like, oh. So stop being the victim and start taking responsibility for your life. If you say you can't succeed, you're not a victim of your circumstances, you're a victim of your own thinking. Here's the truth. There is always someone busier, more overwhelmed, with more challenges who is doing the thing. And I have to put myself in that mindset all the time as well, because especially with where I'm at in this season of life, as you guys know, we are all busy. And I always catch myself even saying that, like, well, I'll be talking to Sarah or someone, and I'm like, I am extremely busy, but you're extremely busy too. We're all busy, right? And we're all figuring it out, and we all have different types of schedules. You just have to figure it out and figure out basically what times are going to work for you to work your business, right? Um, so what's your excuse and what are you focusing on? It's just something to think about. Remember, what you focus on expands. If you focus on why you can't, that's exactly what will happen. True progress comes from doing, which means embracing failure. Failure tolerance leads to action, and action leads to success. Oh, I'm like, oh, you flipped it. I'm looking at my own, so I can't see it. All right. So think and reflect. All right. I'm telling you this because I've lived it. I've failed so many times, but each failure taught me something valuable. Now I want you to think about your own tolerance for failure. And you guys, again, I was talking about this with Allison earlier, and we were talking about in different situations, or, we are, it's not like all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'm not a victim anymore. I'm not in that mindset. Like I can still find myself back in that mindset sometimes, right? I can still find myself in those places where I'm scared of failure. And guess what usually gets me back to those places? Not taking action, right? So that is the biggest thing. Ask yourself when you fail, does it motivate you to try again? Or do you avoid failure altogether by not taking any action? And if you guys want to answer any of these questions through the chat or even to unmute yourselves, I would love to make this more interactive. Allison, I don't know if you've gone over any of these yet.
Oh gosh, as in, have I felt them? All of them. Yes. Check, 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 and check. And yeah, and like you said, I feel like it's something that sometimes, some days you go through it, minute by minute, you're like, oh, this is crazy. And then something else good happens and something bad happens and you're like roller coastering. And sometimes you go through a little period of time where you're like, things are going really well and you're not dealing with it. And then you kind of don't have that failure tolerance. Like it's like you stopped working out and then something happens and you're like, oh, and it just immediately throws you back into that stagnant mindset where you just stop and the fear like just gets a hold of you because you kind of quit working out the fear because things are going well. So maybe you didn't reach out as much because you were already like having all these good conversations and then you forgot to reach out to new people. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I haven't reached out to anybody in a while because now I'm like, why am I afraid of this?
So true. I feel myself there too, because it's like especially when you find yourself and you've got your team really going and you're like, all right, and you're focusing all on your team and helping them get to their goals and whatnot. And then you
Mhm.
realize after the fact, when all of a sudden things kind of stop for them, you're like, wait a minute, I have no conversations going. That was one of the biggest things I will tell you. When I reached Emerald, they told me to not stop working my business because I think a lot of the times you get to Emerald and you think, I made it, I'm here. But you're not, guys. You want to keep working your business. People are going to quit on you. I'm not saying all of a sudden you're just going to drop past Emerald. I'm just saying that you need to continue to work your business. You can't just, sit back and be like, all right, my time, I finished this. Like I got myself here now. Now I'm good. I'm just going to sit back and let everybody else do the work, right? We have to continue to find new people that, I mean, I don't think anyone wants to do that anyways, to be honest. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I've definitely gone through times where I've got a little bit lazy a little bit and stopped like not reaching out as much. But I want to help people. I want to help them with this opportunity and I want to help them with these products. And I believe that, all of you do as well, because we know what we have and it's incredible and it can change everybody's lives. So if you're avoiding failure, you're staying stagnant. Just remember that right there. That was kind of like ooh, when I read that. People with high failure tolerance are the ones jumping into new opportunities. They're the ones saying, bring it on, whether it's a new fast start program, a reset challenge, or an incentive contest. They're ready to learn and grow no matter what. Those questions, Allison, should we let them take a screenshot of it or anything?
Yeah, if y'all want to take a screenshot, feel free to do that. I won't change it yet. All right.
All right. Goal setting. All right. So if you never fail, you'll never know your limits. You need to push yourself to the point of failure to understand what you're truly capable of. Set big goals, even if you fail. When you set a low, realistic goal and hit it, you're playing small. And I'm sure a lot of you guys who have probably been around for a long time, you've probably experienced that. I think sometimes it's the upline who sees what's going on your team that's able to kind of help you and say, Allison, do you realize that you're only 100 points away from this? And it's like maybe 2 days left of the month. And she's like, oh, there's no way I can do 100 points. There's no way. And I'm like, yes, you can. You got this. Like you've got the people working, you've got these people reaching goals. Sometimes you need other people to help you out with that, right? To tell you like, hey, you got this. Like, I know you can do this. That's what happened with me with some of the times where I was ranking up and I had to have others pour that belief into me to let me know that, I could set those big goals that seemed that like they were so far-fetched and far out of, something I couldn't reach. But that proved to me that I could. And sometimes we may not reach it, but guess what happens? You're still growing, right? And then it might happen that very next month. So set bigger goals. It's kind of like saying, I'm going to add three, per month. Okay. Well, that's like your small goal. But what if you said, I'm going to add six? Because if you say I'm going to add three and it's halfway through the month and you added your three, are you going to continue to work? You might not, because you'd be like, oh, I already had my three for the month, so I'm good. I'm just going to kind of lay back now. Right. So I'm going to add six, then I might end up adding 4 or 5 instead of just helping 3 friends. Right. So set bigger goals for yourself. Many of you are waiting for someone to tell you how to succeed, but the answers are already out there. Everything is figure outable. You have to figure out for yourself under your own unique circumstances. And how do you figure it out? By doing. If you know you need to share your products and business with others, or you need to get duplication going on your team, then take action. Okay. The reason I encourage you to increase your failure tolerance is because failure itself is harmless. And I think we all know this, right? The worst thing that happens is you feel an emotion like sadness or embarrassment, maybe a little bit of fear, worried that, oh, what are they thinking of me? And your emotions are temporary. They can't harm you, right? I always tell people this all the time. I've been working this business for 9 years, and I say the worst thing that happens when I reach out to someone is they don't respond back to me. Most people are still my friends. And I will tell you, when I have lost friends in the past, but they weren't really friends. They were Facebook friends, but they weren't people that I really like had a connection with. So to me, it was like, oh well, like it is what it is. I've made mistakes, of course, in the past, probably reaching out to people and not really necessarily building that relationship first. So it could have been some mistake that I made when I started off in the business. But like I said, there's no harm, guys, right? So we have to be able to kind of talk ourselves through that by taking that action. The more you fail, the more you learn and the more confident you get, right? I get so much more confidence once I'm actually like taking action. And the more you learn, the closer you get to success. It's the attempts, not successes, that move us forward. All right.
Wait, did it not go? Why didn't it go? Sorry. For some reason, my button didn't work. Go ahead.
I was just quickly read. I feel like I failed when I've signed 5 people up and they quit, and that's kept me from wanting to reach out to other people. And Sierra, so Karen, and then Sierra said I felt that way before too. But it's not on you when people quit. That is on them. People are always going to quit and give up on themselves. And I will tell you, when majority of these people, first off, they never gave it enough of a chance. But I will tell you, majority of them come back. Do they not, Allison?
Yep.
It was just bad timing. They weren't ready.
And I didn't tell her to say that. It's just true. Yeah, because people will, they're like, oh, something happened, they got distracted, and then they just quit. And if you can disassociate yourself with the outcome and focus on the action, your action is talking to them and sharing with them. And if they take it, great. And if they take it and don't continue with it, at least they started. And they'll probably come back. But either way, you're offering and you're there and you're helping them no matter what. And that's what we can take ownership of, is how we're doing it, and the fact that we're taking those actions and that we're still loving on them no matter what.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of how I've gotten through that kind of stuff, because it happens, and it always happens in clumps. And when it happens early on, it seems a lot bigger, because a clump is a larger part of your team when you're, just starting out. So.
Absolutely.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So Allison knows about my friend, my neighbor. And I was on Messenger last night for I don't know how long, because her and her husband both need to start being healthier. Her husband has a lot of health issues. And she was so determined that today we were going to meet up, and I was even going to have Allison come down and help me, because she could answer more questions. Mm-hmm. And so then she goes to me, like today, when it was time, never heard from her. So, I'm like, what point do you just back off and wait on them?
I wouldn't say
I
you
don't know.
ever fully back off.
Yeah, I would say when someone does that to me, I might kind of switch it back to keeping things a little personal, and I kind of put the ball a little bit in their court, unless something kind of comes up where maybe I find something like a testimony or some info that I know relates to them, and I can kind of bring it back in by sharing that information. That's typically what I had a friend recently. Actually, funny thing is, I'm meeting with someone tomorrow about the business here locally, which I was super excited about. She told me she wanted to share this with me like months ago, and she seriously started ghosting me. And I was like, this is awkward because I see her at church every Sunday. And it was like, I couldn't get her. So I just dropped it, of course, about Plexus. Like, I guess she just doesn't want to do it. She won't respond to me about it. She's, whatever. But she's sitting here super friendly, giving me a hug, talking to me at church. And I'm like, I don't understand what happened. Well, I don't know what happened. Maybe it was like, again, the timing of it, but I kind of just backed off a little bit when it came to that. And she came back to me again like a week ago and was like, okay, I want to do this with you. Let's please meet up. And now I'm meeting with her tomorrow. So it's just sometimes the timing's off. There may have been something that happened in their lives sometimes and you don't know, and they're not willing to talk about it. And I do know something personal went on in her life. And so it just wasn't the right timing. But usually you don't know that till after the fact anyways, right? And we take things personally when it really is not about us.
Well, she tells me her husband not wanting to spend the money. And she's
Okay.
more concerned about him because he's the one with most health problems. So yeah. I think it's about her husband not wanting to let her spend the money.
Yeah, it could be that.
Yeah, but we can work through it. We can work through it. And I certainly don't want to cut you off, Karen, but we've got about 5 minutes left before Zoom's going to cut me off without saying anything to anybody. It's just whoop, done. So I will definitely help you with following up with her, and we'll figure it out and we'll make it happen, because I mean, that might be a very legitimate concern for her, but we can help.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we're towards the end anyway. So yeah. 90% of all who fail are not actually defeated. They simply quit. So when you embrace failure, you take action, you have energy behind your goals because you're not paralyzed by the fear of failing. But when you avoid failure, you procrastinate, and that leads to stagnation, right? I feel like we're a broken record. We're saying a lot of the same stuff. Where are you on the failure tolerance scale from 1 to 10? 1 being low tolerance, 10 being high. And are you willing to increase it? So because we're running out of time, I wanted to make this more interactive, but maybe write this down and we can hopefully kind of continue the conversation in our chat. No, you changed it. Sorry. If your failure tolerance was a 10, what would you do differently today? Write it down, and then we can share in our chat, like I said. And I'm not saying this chat right here. I'm saying in our Facebook chat.
Yeah.
Okay. There's this Thomas Edison quote that said, many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. If you can change the way that you see failure, you gain the strength to keep running the race. I'm talking about planning, executing, and learning from your failures. That's what it means to fail forward. Remember, high achievers aren't deterred by problems or setbacks. They don't view failures as the end. They see them as part of their journey. So I want you to stop tolerating the stagnation, start pushing your limits, stop avoiding failure, and instead embrace it. Because the more you fail, the closer you'll get to success. What would you be willing to do if you weren't afraid to fail? So lots of questions that I really would love for you guys to take the time to really think about them and answer them for yourselves.
Yeah. I'm
Hopefully
just looking real quick at the chat to see if we missed any.
I told Allison when I was looking through it earlier, I was like, ooh, these are like testing me a little bit too. And real quickly, we were going to do a special for you guys for the last week of the month. And so what we've decided to do is we're going to have 10 $10 codes, just 10 for the next week. So whoever grabs them first, which means you'll have $20 to offer your people. Okay. And then we're going to do, on top of that, we're going to do a wheel spin every 5 people that are added on the team for the next week. Okay. And we'll send out some fun prizes for you guys.
But those are the prizes for y'all, not for your new people. So the $10 codes are to pass to the new people, and then the prizes are for y'all.
Yep. And we'll post it. I'm
Everybody
going to make a graphic. We'll post about that in our chat. But our idea, Allison and I were talking about, there's a lot of fun changes that we want to make. And one of the things that we want to do is we want some more connecting and interacting and motivating and inspiring each other through our chat, because I feel like that's going to be the place where we should be connecting a little bit more. So you might see a little bit of a change there where we might be throwing in some videos of ourselves, or we might be just randomly asking you guys questions and trying to get things moving as far as talking to you guys. We'll probably be cheering each other on in there. You might hear a lot more shout outs in there. We want to make it more fun because like Allison said, it has been really hard for us to, get together all together as a team on these calls. So, but I'm glad that you guys all jumped on. This is great.
Thanks, y'all.